Hi, listeners. It's Becca and Brooke with the College Admissions Insider podcast. We're here to remind you of Bucknell's application deadlines for this year.
For incoming first-year students, our Early Decision 1 deadline is November 1st. And for Early Decision 2 and Regular Decision applicants, our deadline is January 10th. We can't wait to meet you through your application.
If there's one thing that's always constant, it's change. Nowhere is that more true than in the field of technology.
And like many industries, higher education is transforming in the midst of the newest tech revolution, artificial intelligence. But what does that mean? And where exactly can you expect to see AI in the college process? I'm Brooke Thames from Bucknell University.
And I'm Becca Haupt-Aldridge, also from Bucknell. In this episode of College Admissions Insider, we'll explore some of the ways that colleges are implementing AI assistance, how that impacts the experience of students and families, and what it means for the future of higher education.
Our guest is Emily Smith, Principal Vice President of Partner Success at CollegeVine, a company that helps colleges and universities optimize their operations with AI.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So for our listeners, let's start with an introduction to your work with CollegeVine, which is one of the organizations that's at the forefront of introducing AI into the college process right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's such an interesting time with AI because a lot of vendors in the higher ed space, students, IECs, like we're all talking about AI as if it's this monolith, right? We're talking about it like, do you use AI? And that's like saying at this point, like, do you use the internet? Like, do you use any technology? It's not a monolith. And we're really at some exciting places now with AI, whether it's students' use of AI in the college process or high schools and the ways in which we can counsel students and get students into higher education. But also on the higher ed side, it's a really exciting time because we're talking about not only generative AI, and we're not only talking about the ways in which AI can kind of create new things for us, but we're now talking about agentic AI. And we're talking about agentic AI insofar as hiring as if we're hiring an AI agent or hiring a team member into whether it's an enrollment team at a college or any kind of operational team to do work. And we think about AI agents really showing up in the college process in a really, really exciting way. And CollegeVine is actually a platform for deploying AI agents really across the entire surface area of the college operating system. And the ways in which we deploy AI agents in the enrollment space are really as if we're like hiring team members or employees that get trained up on an institution like Bucknell and get then plugged into different areas on campus, whether it's like working alongside department staff to automate like campus workflows or enhancing staff bandwidth to sort of make things better for students. Our most important organizing principle is really around sort of improving and removing friction from the student experience. So when we're talking about deploying AI agents, we're talking about the ways in which we can make things like way better and smoother for students wherever we're meeting them, whether it's in the enrollment process or once you get enrolled in college, the ways in which AI agents can really assist in your experience as an enrolled student. So yeah, here at CollegeVine, we deploy AI agents across that entire surface area of campus ops and work with a ton of enrollment teams, student success teams in that spirit of making that student journey like as smooth as possible.
I like the way you speak from such an asset mindset related to AI, right? We're both enhancing teams, we're smoothing out processes for the end user. I think it is a really exciting time to kind of dive into this work. Can you talk more about how you arrived at bridging higher ed with AI?
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, I've spent the last more than 20 years working with colleges. And that's obviously taken a lot of a different shape over the years because when I first started my career, one of my very first projects was bringing the application online, right? Like this was, a billion years ago now, where I was working with a school who had only a paper application and bringing that process into like at the time, modern day, which meant bringing that application from a paper process onto online. And when I applied for colleges, I remember like painstakingly taking out my nicest pen and writing on a photocopy of the common application, thinking like, gosh, my really neat handwriting is really going to like get the attention of the schools that I'm applying for. And over that period of time, we've certainly had different manifestations of sort of technology changing and the available technology changing the ways in which we interact with students and the ways in which we interact with colleges, if we're a student or a family. And over the years, I worked with probably 600 colleges on everything from enrollment recruiting strategy, like CRM and operations side of things, like the ways in which we keep records for students and recruit them, the ways in which we communicate with students. So the ways in which we, write email to students, or the ways in which we train our recruiter staff to really give an engaging presentation. I've had this really cool opportunity to work with so many colleges on all of this stuff around enrollment, recruitment, and admissions. And now that AI is really like available to us, and here in my role at CollegeVine, I get to be really strategic with colleges about how we deploy these AI agents to do this work. I think it's this really interesting time because students have this really high expectation of that we're going to like give them this awesome experience that they, the students are used to like getting things in Netflix and getting things in Amazon, right? Like I'm now mad when Netflix doesn't suggest the next best show for me to watch, because why wouldn't they know what I want to watch next? And students are bringing that experience and bringing that expectation into what they expect sort of the treatment as a consumer is from the college side of things. But on the college side, what I don't think students know is that we're working really hard to get to know a great number of students. And we like really care on the college side to get to know them deeply. We want to know their families. We want to know what they're worried about. But as we recruit more and more students, and as the admissions funnel at particularly like Bucknell, like at popular places, gets bigger and bigger, it's harder to do that and harder to sort of gut that out on the human level. So what I think is really cool about the way we can deploy AI agents is that like both things can be true. If you're an audio listener, you're not seeing this behind me, but I have a sign that's lit up that says "Hello Humans." And I get the irony of being like the AI lady with a sign lit up behind me that says like "Hello Humans" as a reminder to say like AI is this leverage point that we can do a lot more sort of human caring and getting to know in this work if we have the right tool set behind us. And that's what I think the most exciting part about kind of bridging higher education and AI and sort of bringing this sort of ethical, helpful AI into the hands of the folks who are trying to do this really, high value, like mission driven work of getting to know students and helping get access to higher education. Like that's really important to me.
Yeah, something that comes up for me when you're describing this work is enhancement. And one of the ways that Bucknell has partnered with CollegeVine to kind of scale up this work, as you're talking about, is bringing it into our admissions process. And one front-end example is our AI recruiter named Ray. And so for those who haven't interacted with Ray, or maybe are still trying to figure out what exactly an AI recruiter tool is or does, how does that specific example work to enhance the admissions experience?
Yeah. Okay. So here's a good example. It's like we're recording this on a Monday morning. And I realize there is no enrollment leader who starts a Monday morning meeting with the admission staff going like, okay, how many times did the phone ring over the weekend that we weren't able to handle? Right? Like we are adults in work who have families and responsibilities and grocery shopping and other stuff, which means we are not sitting at our desks 24/7 to be able to handle incoming requests from students or be able to help them move forward in the admissions process, like when they need it, or even in what language they need or in what mediums they need. We're reaching out to students like when they're in high school, like our workday is not attuned to the use case of like, yo, I need help with my FAFSA. I know I need my parent to do that with me, the federal financial aid form, but here's my problem. I need you to work with my dad on this, but my dad doesn't get done with work until 10 o'clock at night, and my dad only speaks Spanish, right? Like that is a service level that we should be offering students, and that should be offered to students, right? Students have this expectation, like it's not out of a lack of wanting to offer that to students, but just how are we going to deliver that? And when we think about working with the AI recruiter, you should have this really high standard of, or like working with AI agents in general for your listeners, you should have this really high standard of interaction that like that use case is going to get solved. That like you could have a phone call with a really helpful AI agent that doesn't frustrate you. You're not going to be saying like, get to a human, right? That the phone call can be going really well and smoothly and effortlessly switch back between like your dad's Spanish and your English to get this job done, which is getting your FAFSA completion in. So I think when we think about sort of working with AI, or an AI agent in general, I think the mindset you can hold, or the sort of the mental model that you can hold on to, is this as if I'm talking to a person to accomplish work, right? Like that's what working with an AI agent is, whether it's the AI agent is trying to get you to do something like register for an event or finish your application and be truly helpful with you in finishing those steps. Or if you need something from the AI agent, just like I might call you on the phone, Brooke, and say like, hey, I'm blocked here and here. And you might say like, okay, let's work on this together. That's the mindset that you should have about the AI agent, is that it's not just sort of like sitting back on its heels, sort of waiting to get instructions from you. It's actually going to proactively help you move through the process in a way that works for you, the individual, right? It's going to treat me differently than it's going to treat Becca. It's going to treat Becca differently than the ways in which we treat Brooke. And that's all sort of in the spirit of like machine learning and a lot of data that can offer this truly individualized experience versus Becca, students like you might be interested in clubs like this. Like that's no longer adequate. It should feel like you, Becca, are going to come to Bucknell and join this club sport and be involved in this activity. Like that's the feeling that the AI agent can kind of offer.
And this idea of helping students complete tasks, right? Like not only does it help the student literally cross that off their to-do list, submit that application by the deadline, but it also helps the colleges and universities because now we have a complete application that we can read that maybe had that step not been completed with the level of support that student needed, maybe we couldn't have moved that student forward in our process, even though they were a really viable candidate. So I just see it as so mutually beneficial.
Well, I mean, here's a question for you two. Do you feel any ownership in kind of like closing the guidance gap with students? And by that, I mean, like, we all know that students typically don't have access to enough adequate guidance in high schools. And this is not at the fault of high schools. This is like systemic, right? Where we are saying, the job of a high school counselor is to do, you have 500 students and you need to do mental health and degree, certificate completion and pathways out of high school that are not college, military, vocational, community college, get a job, all these different things. And you're also a high school college counselor. Like that's way too many things in one job with way too big of a caseload. Do you feel as admissions counselors that you own some of the education around like the college process and how we do this? And like, I'm wondering, do you key how AI can be assistive to you in your roles when we talk about closing the guidance gap?
Hi listeners, I'm Mia Mesger, an admissions ambassador at Bucknell University. The only thing better than listening to the Admissions Insider podcast is visiting our campus in person. With campus visits offered 6 days a week, nearly all year round, there are plenty of opportunities to tour campus, attend a preview session, or even sit in on a real class. To schedule your visit today, head to bucknell.edu/plan-a-visit, and hopefully I'll see you on one of my tours soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons our podcast, College Admissions Insider et al. Was born, right? We're providing college resources, college tips, tricks, application insights about colleges and universities broadly. Yeah, of course, we're both at Bucknell. Many of our guests are at Bucknell, but we're still talking about the process broadly, and we're providing resources for students and for their parents to navigate the process, all with the goal of demystifying the process. So the podcast is one way that we do that, but I could see AI being another tool.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool analog, right? Where the podcast is, you're saying like, well, we care less about driving students to apply to Bucknell, and we really care about pulling the curtain back on the process to be a good and helpful resource. Like, I think that's awesome.
And I know you mentioned personalization and what maybe historically personalization has looked like and what AI can help personalization look like today and in the future. Does that extend beyond a student's interaction with a recruiter like Ray?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the ways in which we think about sort of increasingly higher order communication, we might think about communication that's customized, right? And I think about customized communication as things like, Brooke, students like you might be interested in clubs like this. And then I think about personalization, which is including some details about a student, right, to make the student feel felt. And colleges for many years have deployed both customization and personalization in communication to make the students feel felt and to signal to the students a very genuine desire to get to know students and families like as individuals, right? Because we're essentially recruiting students into a community to say like, you can come and be a part of this community, right? Like that's what we're quote unquote selling. And I think there's a higher order beyond personalization and customization, which is individualization, right? Like, and I think that's what we are striving to sort of push up and to the right in these quadrants of like pushing into individualization instead of like saying, we care to get to know students like you. It's much more of an individual, like, no, we're talking about you, the individual. We understand the things you are scared about, the things that you are going to make that decision on, the things that motivate and drive you and your family's decisions about finances and choice and timing, right? Like all of these things. And I think because AI can hold in its head across like many, 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 many thousands of data points, we can actually leverage AI across many different communication modes to offer this experience. So when we talk about AI Recruiter, like we're not just talking about the ways in which like we're generating better email for colleges, because if you're a student out there, you have a completely full inbox of emails that just feel probably pretty like tone deaf to who you are and what you're up to. This is happening across email, text messages, phone calls, chatbots on colleges' websites, right? This is all multimodal, this sort of getting to know you, the individual. And the other thing that I'll add here is like this, in the spirit of demystifying the college process, the thing that I want to point out and sort of show over time is that 10 and 20 years ago, colleges were dealing with very much smaller numbers of prospective students, right? When I went to college, more than 20 years ago, and, even when you both went to college, some time ago, colleges had smaller funnels. They had smaller numbers of prospective students to deal with. And over time, colleges have reached out to more and more and more students in the spirit of trying to get more and more applications to try to serve more and more students. There is a drive, obviously, for many colleges to become more and more selective. And like, however we feel about that, we can leave that aside. But I think there is an important sort of education note to say, colleges are dealing with more prospective students than ever before. Becca and Brooke, have you had over your careers like exponentially more recruiters join your team?
Not in alignment with the growth of our inquiries. No.
Exactly. So we actually cannot scale the human workforce to get to know students the way we want to and the way we know is really important in order to like track with that growth. So that's the thing that I'll expose to your audience to say, like, we're not deploying AI across the college process to like be lazy. Like Becca and Brooke aren't just like going to play like pickleball all afternoon now. Like they're still busy as heck trying to get to know individual students. Like we just need more leverage and sort of power behind these recruiting efforts because of that big growth that we can actually track the humans to support.
I think everything you've shared so far has given us such great insight into all of the different ways that a student and prospective students might interact with AI on that very front-facing end, and how colleges are really utilizing these tools to, like you have said, enhance and upscale that experience to keep it focused on that human connection. But that's not the only way that colleges are leveraging AI or that a student might even experience that. As you mentioned before, there are plenty of different ways to deploy AI agents throughout a student's college journey after they arrive for that first semester. And so what are some of those ways that students and families might not realize?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that like colleges view themselves as sort of the protectors and creators of growth mindset, right? Like we exist as higher education to like create better humans for a better earth, right? Like that's why colleges exist. And that's why we care to support higher education, just like if you're into that. And I'm assuming your audience is into that, given that they're listening. And I think the thing that I think about with AI is like part of that support of that growth mindset and sort of creating humans that are like ready to go out onto earth and make it a better place is understanding that innovation and understanding how to use AI, how to view AI, how to use AI responsibly and ethically, like that's all part of the world now. And we might have some, we might want to litigate like how we feel about AI or how we view it in our day-to-day lives. If you're a parent out there, this might be showing up in your work. You might be resisting it or you might be welcoming it. If you're a student out there, you might be, again, resisting it or welcoming it. But I do think that there is this aspect of AI as just like a thing that's around to stay. And I think the thing we can expect over time is that in all things that you experience, whether it's, in the admissions process in the ways that we've been talking about, or as an enrolled student at any college or university, is that you will likely have access to AI agents and tools in order to do a bunch of things, whether that's sort of reacting to you and helping you with teaching and learning, getting access to tutoring and writing help, getting access to the ways in which you should view AI like as a student and as a scholar, but also in your constituent experience as an enrolled student, as an institution, you will likely have more and more exposure to AI that can help you do things, get a parking permit, get tutoring help, schedule time with your advisor, pay a bill, drop a class. I had this weird experience of going to college and feeling really prepared for college. I went to a prep school myself and went to a liberal arts college, not unlike Bucknell. And I felt really prepared for the academics side of things. And in that, I'm very privileged and very lucky, a great preparation there. I will never forget the first time I had to interact with a registrar. And in that time, it was like going to some weird, moldy building with like a postcard that I had to write on with a particular pencil and push really hard because there's this stuff called carbon paper because I had to make 3 different copies of a thing. And then I had to walk these 3 different copies to these different other moldy offices to go register for courses. And that felt mind-blowing to me, like bizarre. And there are still vestiges of those sort of process things that students need to do that I think AI can be really helpful. Like, would I have rather picked up the phone and been like, hey, I need to register for classes. I kind of want one of these and one of those. And will that conflict here? Like, that would have been the better experience for me. And I think that's what we're now able to offer students. And I think students, both in the name of sort of exposure to sort of good and safe innovation, but also in the name of like just getting things done really smoothly, that AI is going to show up in so many aspects of your student experience, as well as the ways in which once you graduate and this, your institution makes you super successful and ready to go out on earth, it's going to help you get a job, stay connected to the institution, stay connected to the alumni, get connected with humans in a way that feels like very high powered. And again, I think about leverage, and I think about true leverage as a way to sort of do more, faster and better across lots of different places of that student journey, with that high expectation of like a really good service and individualization and personalization throughout.
I appreciate the example about adding or dropping a class. I think we've all had those experiences in higher education or otherwise that we just finish a process and we're like, man, was that was really antiquated, renewing your passport or just some of these technical things. I just really appreciate the way CollegeVine and maybe others in the space too are asking, okay, how can we improve that experience from start to finish? And I think you've spoken to all of the human touch and human elements that just make it a better process for all. But let's take a moment and speak directly to the skeptics or those who are feeling a little resistant about AI entering their college admissions process. Those who might be concerned specifically about replacing that human element. How would you respond as somebody who's a leader in this field?
Yeah, so I have this cool advantage in my life where for the last 20 years, I've spoken to, I don't know, minimum of 5, maximum of like 20 colleges a week, every week for that period of time. And I feel so confident that I have this like good cross-section of like what colleges care about or what admissions people care about. And I will say this really plainly to your audience of particularly students and parents. There is literally no college that doesn't care about individual students and that isn't sort of like altruistically and genuinely invested in sort of the success of individual humans. Like nobody is out running admissions thinking like this is a business and we're just going to like run these numbers and crank the handle and like get more students. Like nobody is oriented around that. Like everybody cares about, let's make sure students find the right fit. Let's make sure students feel felt. Let's make sure students are like healthy, happy, safe, right? Like we that's like really what we sit around talking about. And I want to make sure that students, particularly parents, if you're like, well, how does this show up? Like nobody is deploying AI solutions to become more sort of like rigorously efficient without thinking about the impacts to knowing your students and keeping that like healthy, happy, safe triangle like in the center of our minds. And I think particularly, like, let me give you an example. I talk to a lot of schools about the ways in which we can make the application process better operationalized. And what students and families might not know is that if we even look at processing your student's transcripts across high schools are crazy varied. We might see a transcript where it's a transcript from Florida and it's 14 pages and includes vaccinations and middle school grades and all these codes that we can't decipher. We might see a transcript from a New York public school that is 1-page landscape orientation with a lot of different codes. There is so much work that goes into a college looking at that material from your student and making a determination about like even just simple academic preparedness. And I know at Bucknell, you're thinking about things like rigor and highest math to make sure that students are going to be successful. It's not so much about whether we admit the student or not. It's like first to check on sort of understanding if a student's going to be successful or not. Nobody wants to deploy AI in my talking to colleges. Not very many schools and almost none want to deploy AI to like take humans out of the holistic review process. But here's a story from a school who actually has their admissions counselors reviewing transcripts and applications that include essays. When we worked with this group of counselors, they were like, yeah, actually, because we have to process these transcripts and understand these different codes and sort of piece through all these materials on the student's academic record, we're spending so much time on the transcript that we're skimming the essay. And that feels crappy because we are not spending time getting to know these students in the ways in which they want us to know them, which is like to read the essay and understand their extracurriculars. So for that school, we've deployed transcript processing as an AI-ified thing to get the staff freed up so that they can spend time on what they care about, which is the essay and reading that and taking in sort of this holistic review. So schools, I think that's the thing that I will share is that schools like really want to maintain and improve and increase the human touch. But given how much sort of work that's created in the admissions process, it's really, really hard. So I think that transcript example can feel like, oh, like I'm not going to be sort of machinized and then seen as just a series of numbers. It's like, yeah, let's think about how we can deploy AI to make this tactical thing go faster so that we can get to know sort of the individual person.
As we round out today's episode, we have talked pretty extensively about the higher education landscape in general, all of the ways that AI can enhance not only the experience for colleges and universities, but also for our prospective students and current students and their families throughout the process. Emily, is there one thing that students and families should keep in mind about the college journey as a whole?
Yeah, I think the things that I would think about is that like nobody is out to get you in this process. Like I do think that I will be the sort of maybe kinder, wiser other to say, I talk to colleges all day, every day for friggin' a billion years. And I will say that the admissions folks that you interact with, everyone's there for you and everyone wants to be supportive of this journey in different ways. And I think I will say, like, there's no one right spot. I think when I think about my own college journey, I think someone directed me into thinking everything you do in the college process should be in the service of getting you to that answer of like, can I be a part of this? And I think whether it's the ways in which you interact with people, place, technology, that all of these things should line up to you to feel felt. And I think you should hold a quite high standard in the ways in which colleges like signal that they care to get to know you and be supportive of those things, again, in that triangle of like healthy, happy, safe, right? So I think when I think about sort of technology and I think about innovation, I think the ways in which a college deploys, whether it's like deploying AI or deploying new software, or you're sort of getting a new marketing automation sort of from a different college, like it should all feel unified for this greater experience of like, is this in the service of getting to know me? And is this supportive of sort of getting to that answer of like, can I be a part of this? I think that's sort of how I would organize my thinking and how I would, have your audience organize their thinking about the college process sort of in terms of technology and in terms of sort of like feeling like you can be part of any one given community.
I know I have loved having you on this episode to not only deepen my knowledge of how schools like Bucknell are utilizing and leveraging AI in their college processes, but to also really peel back the curtain on what can feel like this kind of mystical, magical realm of AI for students who want to feel informed and empowered when interacting with it throughout their college journey. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate and sort of wish that my 18-year-old self, 17-year-old self had your podcast at the time that I was applying to college in 1999. And podcasts weren't a thing at that time. And I just really appreciate that you sort of own, like, yeah, you have this ownership of demystifying the process and bridging the guidance gap. And I think it's really cool that you're attempting to expose your listeners to, I don't know, like even this high tech world, which is all new and we're figuring it out. It's pretty fun.
Thanks, Emily. And thanks to everyone out there listening. If you're a fan of the podcast, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, and share this episode with the students and families in your life.
We'll be back with another episode in a few weeks. In the meantime, send your questions, comments, and episode ideas to podcast@bucknell.edu. We read every note you send.
And finally, you're invited to follow Bucknell on all your favorite social media apps. Just look for @BucknellU on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, and TikTok. And you can follow our student-run Instagram account, which is @IamRayBucknell.
Until next time, keep on reaching for your dreams and your dream school.